Thank you very much indeed, Liam. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you very much for the opportunity of being here today and discussing this very important issue. What I'd like to do in my 10 minutes, and bang your microphone when I'm 10 minutes up. Politicians should always be told when it's time to move on. You only ever get 2 minutes in the European Parliament, so this is a blessing to have 10. But let me know when my 10 minutes are up. But can I just take up the point that Mario raised? I think this is a crucial issue because we are talking to hundreds of thousands, millions of European citizens where this really affects their future. And we've got to be very conscious of that in the negotiation we have in Parliament and ultimately the negotiation between Parliament, the Council and the Commission. I think I said at the most recent public hearing that we've got to remind ourselves we are talking here about other people's money. You know, groups of workers and employers who have put aside very large, substantial amounts of money. So in putting together IORP 2 and ultimately getting a negotiated settlement on that, we must be conscious of that. We are talking here about people who have deferred part of their existing income as a means of providing for the future, which is really important, with not just within the economy, as Mario said, but also in terms of the certainty of those people and their lives. I'd like to briefly talk about the state of play where the report is, give some general views about my approach to this, and then go into some of the detail, if I may. Where is the report at the moment? Obviously, as Mario said, this was a report that was produced, IORPS 2, by Commissioner Barnier in the last Commission, and it is the firm view of Commissioner Hill that this report should go forward. We now have a general approach from the Council, which I think is very useful, because I think there was, being frank, some surprise that the Council could come to some agreement on this. They have, and I think Parliament needs to be mindful of the fact that some of those issues have been resolved. And I say that for someone who was nearly 4 years in the Council myself, and for 6 of those months during the Irish presidency, so I understand the importance of coming to a resolution on these issues. I have produced an initial report with my colleagues in Econ, and we had, about a month ago, a very useful public hearing with industry, with different voices from different parts of the European Union. And I hope to be in a position to publish my report by the end of July. We're about 2 or 3 weeks behind schedule. And in deference to my colleagues, I explained that because we are trying to get the text absolutely right, so that we do more work now, they understand that. So it's likely we will produce it at the end of July. It'll be published for everyone to see. And then in the September period, we'll have a consideration in committee in Econ. And then we will open up negotiations with myself and the other shadows to produce a report, hopefully then getting it through our committee November and through the Parliament in December, he says optimistically. But so I see it really as an issue that will fall neatly into the Dutch presidency if one looks at the reality of where we are right now. But I have to say I have a very good dialogue, and I really respect my other colleagues who are working on the file with me, and I've had initial discussions with them. So I think, broadly speaking, we're happy to have the report in July. We'll have a good discussion in September, and then we'll get down to work to have an agreement from the committee before bringing it to the plenary, probably in December. I think it's important to say, because this issue has been raised, why have we not had an impact assessment? And the Commission's response is, well, there have been 2 attempted impact assessments, but I think the answer that was given on both occasions by Mario and his colleagues is that because the number of cross-border IORPs is quite small, 84 in total since 2003 in IORPS 1, we don't have the turnover or the throughput of schemes to come to a view as to the impact assessment. Now, I'm minded by the fact that Commissioner Hill has looked at this issue. He is firmly of the view, as is the Commission, that we need to proceed. The Council are of the view that we need to proceed. So, I think it's a strong view of Parliament that we need to proceed as well and make this proposal work for all concerned. I don't need to tell people in this room about the importance of IORPs. They neatly fall within Pillar 2 provisions. As I think both Liam and Mario said, the reality is that in the Pillar 2 side, we're seeing more and more movement towards defined contribution as against defined benefit schemes, traditional DB schemes. But when one looks at IORPs, we're talking about assets underlying these schemes of about 2.5 trillion euro across the 28 member states of the European Union. So it's an extraordinary source, to take up the point that Mario raised, and the very valid point he makes about CMU and other longer-term investments that we need to see in play in Europe. It's a really important source in a circumstance where, because of quantitative easing and because of the low interest rate environment, it's very hard for pension schemes to get the kind of return they need. We need to start doing things in a way which will encourage that 2.5 trillion to find more opportunities for longer term investment in Europe. So it's very much within the narrative of the Commission and Parliament right now, after the very difficult few years we've gone through, to sort of reposition the entire industry with the kind of confidence that it needs to make the kind of returns that it has. And of course, we're talking here about 20% of the EU working age population is covered by IORPs. There's about 125,000 schemes, some very, very small schemes, including in my own country. And I suppose the area of disappointment has been on the whole question of cross-border IORPs. We've seen effectively 84 established since 2003. You know, it isn't a huge example of success, I hasten to add, but I suppose it's an example of the kind of complications at a regulatory level that is there from member state to member state. So more generally, Europe's getting older. Our old age dependency ratios will double between now and 2060. There are enormous demographic issues across the European Union, some countries more acute than others. And of course, the whole question of occupational pensions is a very sensitive issue in about 5 or 6 member states, in the Netherlands, Ireland, Germany, the UK, other countries. Less so in other countries, but let's not presume that into the future the kind of regulatory environment we create won't provide the kind of certainty that's needed for more occupational pensions cover to take hold in parts of the European Union that hitherto hasn't been the case. So I think we need to be mindful of that as well. My approach is very much based on recognising those sensitivities member state by member state, making sure that no one-size-fits-all approach is the only approach here. And I also think we need to recognise the fact that at the moment, I think the latest figures show about 3.3% of the EU labour force physically moving around to work, particularly so in language areas, of course, Britain and Ireland being one, or the Netherlands, Belgium, France, Luxembourg being another. But I think into the future, more and more EU citizens will travel for work because of the employment opportunities and because of the very nature of the demographic concerns that are there. So we've got to provide for that in a system which encourages people as they move across the European Union, where there are provision for them, that as they go, they have certainty of knowing their position, and those schemes also have certainty as well. And rather than sort of dictate country by country what we should have, we should be shining a bright light, as I say, on those countries that have done an enormous amount of work. I see colleagues here from the Netherlands. I mean, it's fair to say the kind of public debate in the Netherlands in the last number of years has been really quite important in having that debate, making sure that the regulatory environment is right, making sure people know what they are entitled to, that they have a really sophisticated personal benefit statement and the like, and making sure, rather than sort of saying to countries, you must do this and that, we should shine a light in those countries that have done a huge job in having that public debate and making sure that that's extended within the context of the regulation to all member states.